back at it. Look, this is a second video. We'll be looking at the most painful cave dives, the cave deaths of all time. So yeah, the most painful cave deaths of all times. Yo, what are you doing? Right. Let's get to
This
it.
video is sponsored by War Thunder. William Coughlin. It was May 28, 1993, when 26-year-old William Coughlin, with a newfound passion for caving, decided to visit a cave in Kentucky with his friend.
Okay, first of all, me, I wanna ask a question, bro. Like, in your right mind, knowing how dangerous it is, shit, anything can happen. Gas leaks, flood, it can cave in. It can cave in. And it's a newfound what? Passion? He said. Bro, yo, y'all niggas are playing with your lives.
William Coughlin, with a newfound passion for caving, decided to visit a cave in Kentucky with his friends James and Kevin. The cave was divided into two sections: the historic tour, which was accessible to most visitors, and the more dangerous wild tour, reserved for experienced and daring people.
Any black person would tell from here, bro. As narrow as it gets, I am going back. I am going back. I can't do. I can't do well. I don't process well in tight spaces, in confined spaces. Yo, yo, my kryptonite. I will not be okay with this. Nje going into a cave on its own. There's no way you will bring me into a cave, bro.
Accessible to most visitors, and the more dangerous wild tour, reserved for experienced and daring people. After completing the easier historic tour, the guide asked if they wanted to proceed with the more challenging wild tour. Once they agreed, they were required to sign a document acknowledging the risks involved and absolving the operators of any responsibility. This should have been the first red flag, and Kevin decided to opt out, returning to the safer area. The remaining group, now consisting of William, James, and 4 other participants, was led by the guide into the wild tour. He stressed the importance of staying close and reminded them of the potential dangers. As they descended into the lower sections of the cave, they encountered a 30-foot hanging cable ladder with wooden rungs. After climbing down and going a bit forward, there was a second, shorter ladder. At the bottom of the second ladder, the guide informed the group that the official tour had ended. He mentioned they could explore nearby passages if they wished.
What is there to explore? Look at the size of your head, man. Look at the size of your head. Look at this. There's nothing to explore. Go back home, dude. You got a family. Go back home. There is nothing to explore.
But noted that they were running behind schedule and that he needed to step away briefly for a phone call. He left the group at the base of the ladder, and this is when William decided to explore a passage he had noticed earlier. He discussed it with James, who agreed, and William attempted to climb back up the second ladder. However, the climb proved difficult. He was 6 feet tall and weighed 220 pounds. Struggling to ascend, William decided to wait for the guide instead. As time passed and the guide didn't return, William attempted to climb the ladder again. Tragically, halfway up, he lost his grip and fell violently, striking his head on a protruding rock before landing hard on the ground. Blood began pooling from his head, and James rushed to help him. Although William remained conscious, he was delirious and visibly stunned. When the guide finally returned, he instructed the group to climb back out the way they came. However, William's condition made this impossible. James, frustrated, demanded the guide call a cave rescue team, but the guide dismissed the idea, insisting that the group work together to get William out. James
Why
began to
not
suspect
call-
the guide was avoiding involving authorities, perhaps to prevent panic among other visitors. The
For sure it was an illegal. What's this? It wasn't. It wasn't like. What's this? Properly managed or whatever. It wasn't.
group
Like,
decided their
bro.
best option was to bypass the second ladder entirely and take an alternative route through a narrow, previously mapped corridor not part of the official tour. With teamwork, they managed to navigate the initial section, carrying William with them. However, the real challenge came when they reached a rough, sharp V-shaped passage, which made gripping difficult. When it was William's turn, he went in head first, but his size made it an extremely tight fit. Halfway through, he became stuck and realized he couldn't move forward or backward.
It's just not your day, boy. is just not your day. In your size, what makes you think cave? What's this? Going in caves makes it a good idea. Your size of a person, bro. Should have
An
stayed at
extremely
home,
tight
bro.
fit. Halfway through, he became stuck and realized he couldn't move forward or backward. Trapped in a horizontal position with his arms pinned beneath him, he began to panic. The tightness of the passage compressed his chest, making it difficult for him to breathe. The group's attempts to pull him out were futile. As panic set in, the guide instructed James to exit the cave and inform the owner of the situation. James rushed to the surface, but the owner appeared reluctant to involve authorities. The guide, finally recognizing the severity of the situation, went out to get a medkit and to call for emergency services. It took 3 hours for rescue and medical personnel to arrive. Meanwhile, James stayed by William's side, trying to keep him calm, but William's responses grew slower and more slurred until he eventually stopped responding altogether. When rescuers reached William, they faced immense challenges. The downward angle of the passage made it difficult to revive him. They brought in heaters to protect him from hypothermia and began evacuating the rest of the group, leaving only James behind to witness what was happening to his friend. A pulley system was installed to try to free William, but every tug caused him immense pain, so much so that he once again started groaning in agony. The rescue team worked tirelessly throughout Saturday, but after 17 hours of efforts, William was
And it's not like they can like excavate the area, drill or anything, cause it's probably okay. Yeah, it's definitely unstable, especially not knowing or not having an understanding of the type of textures. Yo, there's no way, there's no amount of money that you would pay me to go cave diving. There's no way.
tragically pronounced dead. It took an additional 7 hours to extract his body from the cave. Hermit Cave Incident. It was April 5th, 1999, when 21-year-old Robert Kennedy from Oklahoma set out on what was supposed to be a normal overnight camping trip near Hermit Cave. He was accompanied by 2 others, his stepbrother Richard and their mutual friend Ben. During the night, they gathered around a campfire and discussed the nearby cave, sharing legends and stories about its mysterious reputation. The next morning, as they were packing up to head home, their curiosity about the cave got the better of them. The cave was largely unmapped, adding an air of intrigue, so Robert proposed a quick exploration. Ben, however, had to leave early for work, so he headed back home, leaving Robert and Richard to decide for themselves. Robert and Richard entered the cave through its relatively large main entrance without much difficulty. Inside, Robert spotted one of the rumored side passages they had been talking about.
Look at the size of this thing, bro. Look at the size of this.
They had been talking about and decided to explore it. The narrow passage was too tight for more than one person, so Richard decided to wait outside the cave. Robert promised not to go too deep and assured Richard he'd be back soon. As Robert crawled forward, he encountered a section of the cave that was about 150 feet long and full of tight curves, making progress challenging. The real trouble began when he reached a particular point, called the Keyhole Formation. This section was especially dangerous because it was impossible to exit legs first once passed. Unaware of this,
Dude, I don't know what's going through your head, dog. Isn't it like, aren't you like thinking of, yo, this shit might collapse. Yo, what if it just gets narrower and narrower and narrower to the point where you can't even, dude, you chest first on the floor. Every breath you trying to, oh, bro, and not being able to turn back, dog, I'll be delirious. I'll be delirious, bro. My head will be everywhere. I'll be panicking. Yo, I can't do this. This is not, my heart will not be able to handle whatever this is, bro. My heart will collapse
Robert continued forward
immediately.
because it was impossible to exit legs first once passed. Unaware of this, Robert continued forward, but when the passage narrowed even further, he decided it was time to turn back.
Can you
Returning
turn
to the
back?
Keyhole Formation, Robert realized something terrible. He couldn't pass
Try.
through it feet first. His only option was to move forward through the even tighter.
You see what I'm saying? You will keep going, thinking that it'll open up at some point. Dude, dude. This point, y'all
crevice,
niggas
hoping
are
he couldn't
asking.
pass through it feet first. His
Ask,
only
y'all are
option was to
asking
move
for.
forward through the even tighter crevice, hoping the cave would widen enough beyond it for him to turn around. What he didn't know was that the crevice sloped downward at a 30-degree angle. Exhausted, Robert squeezed through the space, exhaling all the air from his lungs just to
What was I saying? What was I saying? What was I saying? Because I've watched way too many. What's this? What's this? These TikToks to realize would see these niggas would just keep doing it until
it. After several pushes, he reached a horrifying realization. He was stuck. Gravity was working against him, and every attempt to move only worsened his situation.
Bro,
Desperate, Robert began
bro.
yelling for help, but Richard, waiting outside the cave, couldn't hear him. Worried after some time, Richard ventured into the cave by himself, though he had no flashlight because Robert had taken the only one. Crawling in complete darkness, Richard called out for Robert, who immediately yelled back, letting him know he was trapped and struggling to breathe. Realizing he couldn't reach his stepbrother in the pitch black, Richard left the cave to call for help, and about an hour later, a team of 10 rescuers arrived and began assessing the situation. The primary problem was Robert's location. He was trapped in an extremely deep area, approximately 150 feet from the cave's main entrance. This meant that drilling a shaft from above wasn't an option, so the only way to reach him was through the inside of the cave. The rescuers themselves began experiencing breathing difficulties due to the tight space, so they installed a ventilation system to pump warm air into the passages. Only one rescuer could work at a time due to the
Warm
cave's
air.
tightness, and armed with manual tools, they began trying to widen the keyhole formation. However, the lack of space severely limited their maneuverability, and time was running out. Robert's breathing became more difficult, and he eventually stopped cooperating, making faint gurgling sounds, a sign of potential suffocation. After hours of effort, the rescuers managed to excavate through the keyhole formation and reach Robert's feet. Though unconscious, they felt a faint pulse, which gave them enough hope to try to get him out as quickly as possible. They immediately tried to pull him free, but unfortunately, the attempt failed. A pulley system was considered, but the cave's limestone and gypsum walls were too fragile to support the tension. With no other options, they continued digging around his body, which took an additional hour. When they finally
Yo.
freed Robert, they rushed him outside, where paramedics were waiting. Tragically, it was too late. After 5 hours of relentless rescue operations, Robert Kennedy was pronounced dead. Black Cave.
But then why these people? Dog, I don't see the point of like. It's different if it's like you were scaling up a mountain, but then, dude, do you realize these people are just asking to get yo, yo.
Black Cave tragedy. In April 1995, Thomas Edward Benning decided to visit Black Cave in Arizona. Having explored the cave before, he felt confident that this would be a relatively safe trip. He entered the cave alone, equipped only with an electric miner's lamp and
He just has to go. You just have to go, bro. Going in there is one thing, but alone, no gear. He has no helmet, just a light. Alright, bro, just you just asking for it. You asking for it. Just, you not coming out.
the first part of the cave was familiar to him, and he navigated it without any issues. However, at one point, he noticed a secret side passage that caught his attention. Drawn by curiosity, Thomas strayed from the main route he usually took and began exploring the darker, narrower passage. After venturing deeper into the unfamiliar passage for some time, Thomas decided it was time to turn back. But to his growing concern, he realized that an hour had passed, and he was completely lost. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't retrace his steps to the familiar route. As panic began to set in, his situation worsened. His lamp started to flicker and eventually went out, leaving him in total darkness, miles underground. With no source of light, Thomas turned to his last resort, a box of matches. Striking one, he managed to create a faint glow that barely illuminated the rocks around him. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. He continued forward, using one match after another, but the matches burned out quickly, and soon he ran out entirely, leaving him once again surrounded by absolute darkness. Despite the circumstances, Thomas refused to give up. He devised a plan to leave behind small, useless items as markers to avoid circling back to the same spots. Starving, dehydrated, and utterly exhausted, he pressed on until he encountered the fissure, a narrow crack in the rock barely 4 feet deep. Believing this might be his only chance to reconnect with the familiar route or find a larger opening, he decided to enter it feet first. As he lowered himself into the gap, his hips dropped below the narrowest point, and he suddenly realized his mistake. He was completely wedged. His hips were firmly stuck between the rock walls, rendering him immobile. Using every last ounce of his strength, Thomas tried to lift himself back up, but it was no use. He was now trapped, alone, in the dark, with
I just don't know at this point. I just don't know at this point. This point, bro. I don't know whether to feel like sad or cause bro, you can't just be going into certain places where you have no guarantee that you would make it out. This is definitely closer to like swimming with sharks, bro. You jumped in, you asked for it. Whether you live or die, it's up to you at this point. But bro, stop cave diving, bro. Niggas be jumping into the smallest crack and G. The smallest crack. Ah, bro.
no one able to hear him. Himself back up, but it was no use. He was now trapped, alone, in the dark, with no one able to hear him. Days passed, and Thomas remained in the same position,
Days in absolute pitch black.
growing weaker with each passing moment. Back home, his wife grew increasingly worried when he failed to return. She contacted the police, who began an extensive search of the caves in the area. Unfortunately, Thomas hadn't told anyone exactly which cave he planned to visit, leaving rescuers to search blindly. Miraculously, rescuers eventually spotted his car parked near Black Cave. A rescue team entered the cave, carefully exploring all the mapped sections. They found some of Thomas's belongings, including his glasses and shirt, but they missed the secret side passage he had ventured into. Amazingly, Thomas was still alive at this point, though his condition was rapidly deteriorating. Days passed, and with no further progress, authorities
You'd think with all the weight loss, he'd just make it out of there. He'd just pull himself out. Dude. Like, just imagining you being stuck in a cave and it's pitch black. No one knows where you're at because this nigga didn't clarify which cave he's going to. Yo.
Authorities unfortunately called off the search. Thomas was officially declared missing. Refusing to give up, his wife continued pleading with authorities to resume the search. She distributed flyers around the city and reached out to anyone who might have information, but unfortunately, she wouldn't have known about her husband for a long time. It wasn't until December 1996, over a year and a half later, that 3 other cavers exploring Black Cave stumbled upon Thomas's remains in the dark, narrow passage where he had become trapped. Zacaton Singh.
So, if it's not you dying in a cave, it's you running into someone's corpse. I could handle seeing a corpse. Yo, but still, bro. There's no way. Only time you find me in a cave, boy. Only time you find me in a cave is when zombies are ruling, boy.
Hole incident.
Otherwise,
On April 6, 1994, diving legend Sheck Exley, the first person in the world to log over 100 cave dives, set out to break a new depth.
Then they these niggas. Then they these niggas. These niggas, bro. There's cave divers and then there's these niggas.
Record. His goal was to dive through the Zacaton sinkhole in Mexico, one of the deepest water-filled sinkholes in the world, plunging over 1,000 feet. Sheck's passion for deep diving began at a young age when he and his brother would compete to see how deep they could go. Tragically, during one such competition, his brother lost consciousness at around 50 feet and drowned. Despite this, Sheck pursued his love for diving, becoming an expert. For context, the average diver is advised not to descend deeper than 150 feet, with 300 feet considered the absolute limit limit for experienced divers. Accompanied by fellow diver Jim Bowden, Sheck meticulously prepared for the record-breaking dive. The event drew TV reporters, who wanted to witness this extraordinary feat. As the two divers descended into the Zacaton sinkhole, they wished each other luck. Although diving together, their dives would be independent. Exley had trained for this attempt, pushing his limits in previous dives. During one preparation dive at Bushman's Hole in South Africa, however, something weird happened. He reached an astonishing depth of 863 feet, but experienced alarming
How did your eardrum pop, bro? How?
symptoms. He began hallucinating, and his body trembled uncontrollably, which are classic signs of high-pressure nervous syndrome, or HPNS. HPNS typically manifests at depths beyond 500 feet and is believed to result from the compression of cell membranes in the central nervous system. The condition can cause confusion, tremors, and even hallucinations, making it incredibly dangerous for divers at those depths. To mitigate these risks, Sheck and Bowden planned to descend slowly, carefully switching tanks as they reached new depths. For the first stretch of their dive, everything went smoothly. However, problems began to arise at around 800 feet. Bowden noticed slight trembling in his hands, an early warning sign of HPNS. At 900 feet, Bowden encountered another issue. His air supply was running critically low. His tank pressure had dropped to 1,080 psi, far below the expected 1,800 psi needed to ensure a safe ascent. Keep in mind that decompression, depending on how deep the divers go, can take up to hours, which meant that Bowden was now in a life or death situation. Realizing the danger, Bowden
Yo. See, this is also one of the things cave diving will never be one of my hobbies. Sure, I'll be diving or anything like that, but cave diving is not one of my things. Or sinkhole diving, whatever the fuck these guys are doing. Decompression is what scares me the most, because I do not know when to decompress. You feel me? Or how long to decompress, or how painful it is when you reach a certain depth. I think it's probably like 150 exactly. Is it 150? I think it's 150 or before 150, where you have to release the I think it's releasing the air from your ears so that your eardrums don't explode. Don't explode, bro. Ah, man, dog, there's no way. Hey, count me out. Count me out, bro. So it's eardrums and then the decompression. With decompression, you having to worry about like how long your oxygen will be able to keep you alive, or to keep giving you oxygen for. And that time you have to be in there for like the next hour decompressing, because you can't just go straight up. You'll fuck yourself up. In fact, you die. You just die, because you still have to decompress. Toxins have to, like, I don't really know the whole what do you call this, how it really works as to like how to decompress or anything like that. But then, yo, this is a life or death situation. It's death either way. Because this nigga's air tank is running out. And I'm sure he has less than an hour. And this nigga needs an hour to decompress.
began his ascent that Bowden was now in a life or death situation. Realizing the danger, Bowden began his ascent immediately, hoping he could make it back to the surface in time. Exley, however, was in even greater trouble. At around 880 feet, his vision blurred, and his body began trembling uncontrollably. HPNS symptoms, combined with nitrogen narcosis, which is a condition akin to being drunk caused by high-pressure nitrogen, began impairing his ability to think clearly. To steady himself, Exley wrapped his descent line around his arms, but his symptoms worsened, causing him to breathe more rapidly and deplete his air supply at an alarming rate. In a desperate move, he switched tanks, but at such depths, this was not ideal. Disoriented and overwhelmed by his symptoms, Exley became unable to think straight or move. Bowden, ascending cautiously, noticed Exley's descent line with unused tanks still attached. While concerned, he assumed Exley might have successfully reached the sinkhole's bottom and was making his way back up slowly. However, on the surface, the support team grew suspicious. They observed bubbles rising to the surface, but only from one diver, Bowden. A support diver, alarmed, wrote on an underwater slate, "Where's Sheck?" She decided to descend to 250 feet to investigate. At 280 feet, she spotted something chilling: two small white squares hanging from Exley's descent line. Upon closer inspection, she realized they were pages from Exley's diving profile, tools he had used to meticulously plan his dive. The realization was devastating. Shek was stuck somewhere deep below. Nearly 10 hours after their initial descent, Bowden miraculously surfaced, surviving his own life-threatening dive. Exley, however, a hero that had previously saved numerous other divers, remained in the depths of the Zacaton sinkhole. 3 days later, the recovery team pulled his descent.
They waited 3 days, bro. These niggas waited 3 days. 3 whole days before pulling the line. And they didn't even know that he had his hands around it. 3 days, 3 whole days. Nah, bro.
Line to the surface, bringing Exley's lifeless body with it. Jim Bowden reached an extraordinary depth of 915 feet during the dive, setting a world record for open-circuit scuba diving.
Yo, 3 whole days.
Don't forget to play it for or video. Massive
3
bonus
whole
available
days.
for a limit.
Nah, bro. There's no way, bro. What? Yo. Look, I'm gonna be telling y'all niggas, bro. If you ever wanna go cave diving or any of that type of sports, don't do it. Don't do it. And if you feel like it's something that you're drawn to, get some help. Get some help. You really need some help, bro. You can't be doing such things, bro. Get some help. All right, then. With that said, I hope you guys really enjoyed the video. Till the next video. Peace.